Alright, welcome everyone to another Phoenix Point video. I'm just putting this out relatively quickly as I prepare my Dominions 5 MA Relay Nation analysis ahead of the upcoming game. But what I thought I'd do today is break down at least the Tier 1 weapon offerings in Phoenix Point to talk through what are the choices you have. Because Phoenix Point, unlike XCOM, doesn't have as much of a vertical tech tree. There really is only Tech 1 and Tech 2. But those technologies are split across different factions and also different types of weapons. So in other words, Phoenix Points has a lot more side grade options in weapon choice, and which weapons you choose can dramatically change the way your characters play at various points in the game. So what I wanted to do is talk through at least the Tech 1 weapon options that are available to you. By Tech 1 I mean the technology that you and the other factions start the game with, not those that get developed later on. We'll see how we're doing on time, whether or not we want to go into Tech 1.5. One apology is I've had to load an older save in order to do this video just so I don't have spoilers popping up on the screen all the time, and I want to avoid those if possible, though there'll still be some spoilers just in terms of the equipment you may see sitting in my inventory, but not story stuff that you would otherwise see on the main map. That does mean that for a couple of items I won't actually have them in inventory. I'll have to show them in the manufacturing screen or just talk to them. Mostly that's the case with some of the Anu kit. So, weapons in Phoenix Point. Let's, probably easiest to talk about this by classes, break down what the available options are, and then say when or when not you would want to opt for the various designs. So at Tier 1 for assaults, your weapon choices are assault rifles or shotguns. Shotguns are a bit odd here in the sense that there's a faction shotgun unlocked at the start of the game, but the Phoenix Project unlocks their shotgun very early through an autopsy of an alien. So I'm including it in Tech 1 because it's not really a Tech 1.5 upgrade style weapon. So your choices are assault rifles, which are moderate range, moderate damage repeating firearms, or shotguns, which fire single bursts at very close range. Let's walk through the available options and why you might want to pick them within the two categories, and then why you might want an assault rifle or a shotgun or vice versa. Within the assault rifle class, you have, I think, 4 available to you in the game. Independent, Phoenix Project, New Jericho, and Synedrian. As far as I can tell, Anu does not manufacture a assault rifle. They use shotguns as their default. So you can see this Anu shotgun over there. I may be wrong about that, and I'm happy to correct this video after the fact. I've never seen an Anu assault rifle. The trade-offs that you have between the assault rifles, well, to be honest, there's really only 2 that are in significant... yeah, I'd say there are only 2 that are in serious contention. There are 2 assault rifles that are pretty bad. The worst of the worst is the Yat, which is an independent one, which you can only get by looting and you can never manufacture. But it does give us a chance to highlight how you decide whether an assault rifle is a good weapon or not. Your damage output is a function of the damage per bullet, so 30 in this case, and 6, which is the burst number of rounds you fire per firing of the assault rifle. The range is not just, it's not range truly in Phoenix Point. Range, you can shoot well beyond a hypothetical effective range of the weapon. What that means is how quickly your accuracy circle is going to expand. So a much longer range means a much tighter circle. It's essentially an MOA measure for the rifle. Action point cost should be obvious, and then ammo capacity. So in this case, Yat seems to be an old-school conventional assault rifle with a 30-round magazine, 6-round bursts, gives you 5 bursts before you reload, and finally weight is how heavy the thing is to carry. So, the Yat and the Phoenix Project AR are very basic. We'll have a look at the Phoenix one quickly, and then we'll come back to these ones. We want equipment, we want only assaults, and we want this. This is the Ares. So you'll see the Ares is superior to the Yat in a couple of ways, in that it has a longer effective range and greater ammo capacity, while still having the same weight, the same damage, and the same burst. This means that the only reason you'll ever want to use the Yat is if you captured it and you don't want to manufacture another rifle and you're short on weapons, which is really only a thing in the higher difficulty levels. In normal difficulty, it's worth stressing that your recruits come with default armor and default equipment for their class, whereas in the higher difficulties, you're equipping everyone from scratch, and that may mean you end up using looted weapons if you're tight on materials, as you're likely to be. So that's the Phoenix AR. 36, 25 effective range, 36 ammo capacity. Let's go back to looking at someone who is an assault. Equipment. Done. Okay. So the real competition at Tier 1 in the assault rifles is between the New Jericho Bulldog AR-50 and the Synedrian Demos AR-L. They have very different strengths. The Demos does the same damage and the same burst as the Phoenix assault rifle, so there's no damage upgrade here. What's different is the effective range is 41, which is miles beyond the 25. This means you'll see accurate return fire or accurate bursts, and more rounds on target means more damage. It means that as a medium range weapon, it's actually much more flexible. You also have a much higher ammo capacity, and where ammo capacity matters is not just in terms of turn economy, but if you have units with skills like Rage Burst, for example, although you'd probably pair that with a heavier weapon, but an assault rifle might be a secondary. A Demos with Rage Burst is going to fire 10 volleys. 10 volleys, which will send out 60 shots at 30 damage a pop. So against a target with all of its armor shredded in particular, that can be really devastating at medium range. So the Demos is a nice all-purpose performer. Its issue is that it has no penetration and relatively low damage value. But if you're shooting against targets that don't have that much armor, then this can be really devastating. The Bulldog is, against unarmored targets, worse than the Phoenix assault rifle because you lose 2 burst, but in exchange you get 10 damage. The effective range is also shorter than the Phoenix assault rifle. The ammo capacity is, it's okay considering you're only shooting 4-round bursts. So when you're using this New Jericho gun, you're actually doing less damage against most targets in the early game, but as soon as armor starts to come into play, at the extreme point of the curve, anything with 30 armor will take damage from a Bulldog, but won't take damage from a Phoenix AR or a Demos. So when you start dealing with armor targets that you're not convinced you can get weak point shots on, it may be better to go over the Bulldog. If you get to the point in the game where if you don't have a better option, and all parts of most enemy targets have, say, 20 armor on them, then the choice between doing 80 damage and 60 damage, again, favors the Bulldog if you're going to be consistently hitting. But the lack of effective range means that really this is not an ideal weapon for most scenarios, but it might be the best you have available to you when armor comes out if you get caught by surprise, or if you're playing on normal and you've recruited a whole bunch of new Jericho troops and they came to you holding Bulldog ARs. Also, if you're raiding Havens, you should end up with a lot of Demos rifles and a lot of Bulldogs. You can see I've got a big collection of Demos rifles down here that I've retired because I grabbed a lot of them from Synedrian. The other option to assault rifles, or the other way to deal with armor in particular, is to choose a shotgun instead. So let's see a Phoenix. This is the Phoenix Project shotgun, the Mercy SG3. Between these two shotguns, the Phoenix Project and the Iconoclast of Anu, it's really a slight but direct upgrade from the Phoenix Project gun to the Anu gun. So the Phoenix Project gun gives you 40 damage per pellet, with 8 pellets per burst. So each pellet is doing the same damage as each of those 4 rounds that's coming out of the Bulldog assault rifle. So you can already see the damage potential and the fact it might punch through armor quite effectively. Obviously, very low effective range, and you're looking at 6 shots before reload. Weight is the same as an assault rifle. Swap over to the Anu shotgun, the Iconoclast. All of a sudden, you've got a 10 burst and a 5-round magazine and an even shorter effective range, but I think it's pretty much all just like the difference between 6 and 8 range is not much. So what this gives you is a potential 400 damage per shot, and because you're doing all of that damage per pellet, so 40 per pellet, you've got reasonable armor penetration capacity. So the other option to deal with armor, obviously, is to use dash assaults. This is, I think, a significant part of the meta. In fact, the late game meta for me has largely been dash assaults with shotguns and rapid clearance. What this means is, so rapid clearance gives you 2 action points every time you kill a target. Dash allows you to move by spending will rather than action points. So what you can do is dash to absolute point blank range, or you can dash twice or dash once and move until you only have 2 AP left, till you're literally touching the opponent, stick the barrel into the weakest armored part of the target, which is usually like an arm joint or something in the case of Arthrons. So get around all those 40 armored places, stick it where the 10 armored location is, pull the trigger, 1 shot kill, 2 action point refunded. dash to your next target because you also get will points for killing a target. Not enough to dash, but enough to keep this going. Dash to your next target, boom, dash to your next target, boom. At that point, well, you might have to move, boom, move. But either way, you're clearing 3, 4. I think my most extreme case is you might clear 7 targets in a turn if you're able to rapid reload, or if you're carrying 2 shotguns, which is something I have done before in order to take, but that was when I was testing how far I could take rapid clearance. You could also get the skill that lets you reload for free, or have ammo on your belt. But I prefer not to waste. I prefer to spend the points on more speed instead of that. And I usually have med kits on my belt rather than magazines. All right, we're back. Sorry, there was a significant interruption there. So we had finished on assaults, and I was about to go on to heavy, so I may as well do that now. Heavies at tech level 1 really only have 2, I suppose, primary weapon types, and there's the option of carrying a grenade launcher as well, for which there is 1, maybe 2 options depending on how you classify mount weapons. So the 2 options you have for a heavy are the Hell 2 cannon, which is the Phoenix Project heavy weapon, and then you can also pick machine guns, and there are 2 Tech 1 machine guns available, the New Jericho one and the strictly inferior independent one. I think I've got one lying around that I will be able to show you when we get to that point. So firstly, let's just compare the 2 genres of weapons, if you will. The Hell 2 cannon is the one that anyone watching this video has probably already tried, because it's the starting weapon of the first heavy you get. It does 180 damage, 10 shred. It inflicts that shock value, which can be good for reducing the action points of the opponents you hit with it, so it can be useful on high value targets in that way if they don't resist the shock. Has a low effective range, costs 3 action points to fire, 6 ammo capacity, and is relatively heavy at 5 weight, but when you sign up to be a heavy, you expect to be carrying heavy weapons. So this is basically a hard-hitting weapon that is relatively good against targets no matter what their armor setup, because at 180 damage, the relative reduction in the damage value you're going to get from the armor is less than a multi-projectile firing weapon like an assault rifle. So the Hell Cannon kills big things. It kills big things even more effectively once you make 2 key changes. The first is, and I know this is getting slightly off topic, you change the armoring of your character to no longer be heavy armor, so instead I gave sniper equipment to mine to give significant accuracy bonuses, which means that the effective range is less of a problem, and you can actually hit things beyond sticking the barrel into their face and pulling the trigger, which is where the Hell Cannon basically starts the game. A lot of people cross-class Assault Heavy, as I do. That allows you to do things like dash, rage burst, even return fire with a regionally accurate Hell Cannon can be interesting. So this is a big thing killer, which cares less about armor. 10 shred is okay, but unless you're rage bursting something, you're not going to shred a huge amount of armor, and if you're rage bursting it, it's probably dead anyway. But the Hell Cannon is a go-to for killing large targets. The alternative is the machine gun, so let's pull up the less good machine gun first, which is the independent one. You'll only have the independent machine gun if you're looting it. I've got such a significant collection of weapons at this point in the game that even though, yes, I have looted some, I could probably scrap them all at this point, because the new Jericho guns are strictly better, and I have a reasonable supply. I've got a lot of them on my heavies at the moment, and I can always jostle them around if needed. So, the Uragun machine gun, 40 damage, 2 shred, so 2 shred per bullet in a burst of 10, so you're going to get 20 total shred value out of the weapon, so you'll shred more than you did with the Hell Cannon, but, there we are. Effective range 8, so even shorter, so this really is a point-blank spray-and-play sort of weapon, 10 ammo capacity to use, but really, if you're in any good place in the game, you'll be using the new Jericho gun, which increases your burst to 12, increases your effective range to 9, and gives you an extra 2 bursts in the magazine. So, think about this for a moment. We're getting the same damage per shot as we got out of the new Jericho assault rifle, and almost 30% more than we did out of the Phoenix and Synedrion assault rifles. So, good amount of damage per shot. We're also firing a lot more shots. We got a burst of 12, which is twice the standard assault rifle burst, and we have a shred value. The trade-off is that it's got a dismal effective range of 9 and costs 3 action points instead. So this thing really, it's only useful if you get this thing right up close. If you do get it up close, however, it's a very effective killer. I'm not sure it can compete with shotguns in the early game if you're going to be doing the whole dash up and kill things at close range approach. However, there's certain niche circumstances where I think the machine guns start to come into their own. One of those is if you pair them with something like, for example, a Berserker's armor break ability, which imparts a massive shred to every projectile a person fires, and because of that, a heavy with a machine gun firing a very, very large target, no spoilers, but very, very large targets in the game. Most people know what I'm talking about. If you have 50 shred on every round, you're going to hit different parts of the body with each of those rounds. All that armor is gone, and then the rest of your team can absolutely go to town on it. Of course, the alternative is you could just Rage Burst with the Hell Cannon, but Rage Burst is a top level ability, and not every heavy is going to be top level. So there's place for the machine gun, I think, but I still consider the default weapon of most heavies to be this cannon. That said, there is nothing to prevent you, other than weight in most cases, and this heavy is entirely capable of doing it, if we ditch the med kit, and I haven't leveled strength much on this guy at all, is carrying both weapons is entirely plausible if you want to be able to deal with two different threat profiles, but I find a lot of heavies unlock different weapons options anyway as nice secondaries. Things like PDWs, handguns, assault rifles can all be useful as secondaries for a heavy with a Hell Cannon, and of course a lot of heavies are going to be wanting carrying mounted weapons, so the grenade launcher or the Jericho mounted rocket launchers, both of which I believe are tier 1. Let's not talk about the explosives, because that's a different kettle of fish, and they're not really primary weapons in a sense. And you have a limited range of choices anyway. If you want a grenade launcher, you've got the Phoenix grenade launcher. If you want a rocket launcher, you've got the Ninja Jericho rocket launcher. That's pretty much your choices. If I do a T2 weapons video, I will talk about T1 explosive weapons and grenades as well, just because that list is pretty small and that video would need some bulking out. Let's move on to a sniper who is currently not carrying T1 gear. Let's get rid of all that stuff and talk about what we've actually got in terms of equipment. So let's equip the 3 tier 1 sniper rifles and talk through each of them. And again, you're going to have a generic theme, which is you have the Phoenix rifle, which is a bit meh, and then you can go in 2 different directions for 2 different sort of side grade options between New Jericho and Synedrion. As with many other weapons types, the Disciples of Anu don't manufacture sniper rifles. They're not really into snipers in general. The Phoenix Project Firebird sniper rifle, 110 damage, 58 effective range. Like all sniper rifles, 3 action points, ammo capacity 8, weight 4. So 110 damage, 58 effective range. Those are the 2 key statistics here. Most other things with tier 1 sniper rifles don't change. It's about the damage and it's about the effective range. The New Jericho gives you an upgrade in a variety of areas. You go from 110 to 130 damage. Now, if you're firing at a target with, say, 40 armor, the actual difference there is quite large. You're going from 70 damage up to 90 damage. It's a good buff. It's a good buffer. There are targets you'll meet that are even more heavily armored than that, but really, you're usually going to be able to shoot at a weak spot. So it's a decent damage upgrade in practice that can make it more reliable to remove limbs with the New Jericho option. Also, the New Jericho option actually has a larger magazine size. The loss of a little bit of effective range here probably doesn't justify holding onto the Phoenix gun over the New Jericho gun once you get your hands on a couple of these. The Gauss weapon in general, more so than the relationship here is much clearer as an upgrade than it is with the assault rifles. Because with the assault rifles, you lose some burst, you lose some total damage, and the target needs to be armored in order to justify the move over to the New Jericho gun, and even then it's a bit dubious. With sniper rifles, I guess the designers kind of assumed that you're going to be shooting for less armored targets anyway, so they gave the New Jericho gun more relative damage, and obviously still one shot at 3 action points. So there's no reduction in burst. It just does more damage straight out. Maybe it's the advantage of longer rails in rail weapon application. Who knows? Either way, this is your damage option. I wouldn't worry about the reduction in effective range. Snipers are pretty accurate anyway, although I would say both these weapons are most suited at long range for center mass shooting and at medium range for... Only at medium range will you be doing limb shots. Entirely different if you equip the Synedrion option, which at tier 1, full disclosure, at tier 1 this is by far my favourite sniper rifle in the game. What does a Synedrion rifle give you? 120 damage, so less than the new Jericho option, but still an upgrade over the Firebird. The Cyclops is still the top damage contender, but everything else about the Pythagoras is just fantastic. This thing has 82 effective range. And what that means is your snipers are just going to whistle, half breathe out, and then take limbs off whatever target you want at whatever distance you can spot them at. These guys do enough damage and are precise enough that they will consistently hit the less armored upper arm joints on the primary end, the crabmen that you're fighting most of the time, and are perfect at removing things like machine gun arms so you don't get return fired when you move the rest of your squad up to annihilate them, or in an emergency taking off grenade launcher arms, or in the case of annoying mind controlling enemies, one Pythagoras 7 on a sniper with rapid aim who can fire 2 shots will put 2 rounds straight into its head reliably and thus disable the mind control component by busting the enemy's will. Whether that's just to disable the mind control or because you want to then go mind control them because their will is now 0, up to you. But the Pythagoras is the precision implement of the sniper shed. And at 120 damage, I think that is enough damage. I don't see a reason to take the Cyclops instead 95% of the time. It is also notable in that if you'll see the ammo capacities I scrolled over, you go from 8, 10, 15. Now, reloading a sniper rifle is not that big of a deal most of the time because it's a 3 action shot to fire, 1 to reload, so it doesn't stop you taking a shot. It stops you taking 2 shots with rapid aim. But still, 15 ammo capacity also means manufacturing the ammo and carrying the ammo. You can carry more ammo for longer engagements in one slot, or you may not even need to carry in most missions a replacement magazine, depending on how long you expect that mission to go. So I consider the Pythagoras king of the tier 1 sniper rifles. Let's get rid of those and talk pistols. Let's talk pistols. Give us some handguns. We have New Jericho, we have Phoenix Point, we have Anu, and then we'll have to talk about Synedrion last. Handguns are the traditional secondary weapon of a sniper, and in Phoenix Point, handguns are actually pretty good. If you get other characters who get random ability to spec into PDWs and handguns with bonus damage, so plus 20 damage per shot, I think is the spec, then handguns can actually be quite good weapons. With these, actually we'll do Anu last, and see if we can quickly find a sniper on my list who's carrying the Synedrion. Yeah, this one's carrying the Synedrion pistol, so let's ditch all that. Get the ordinary handguns up first, and then we'll talk about Anu, because Anu's weird. Phoenix Project, Cypher handgun, 50 damage, 18 effective range, 1 AP to fire, 8 ammo capacity. So you get 8 shots out of a magazine. It's relatively close range, just 50 damage. This thing hits relatively hard. Shooting, you'll usually be shooting a pistol at close range, trying to finish people off. And 50 damage is enough to deal with moderately armored components. Just do the chip damage you'll usually want from a pistol. Also, pistols are very good for killing worms and things that spawn near you in large numbers, so you can hypothetically kill 4 worms in a turn with a reasonably accurate sniper, remembering sniper gives you plus accuracy, so you'll get more than 18 effective range out of this gun. The new Jericho gun gives you more damage in exchange for slightly less effective range, and we're seeing a pattern here. The Gauss handgun. Nice sleek lines to it though. 12 ammo capacity, so more ammo in the mag. I consider that useful because you'll be emptying lots of rounds relatively quickly, and it's rare people will carry spare magazines. Although I did take, when I had spare weight on some classes, I would sometimes carry a handgun in their backpack even if they weren't proficient as a last chance backup weapon, because handguns notably can be used with one arm, and if your arm is disabled, almost any primary weapon in the game can't be used. So you want your classes to have something they can do other than, punching people with medkits once they're down to one arm. So the new Jericho gun gives you a little more damage in exchange for a little less range. In the situations where you're firing a pistol, I think that usually the extra damage is probably worth it most of the time. You're not going to need precision. But then I think about tiny targets like worms, and I end up thinking, nah, the Phoenix Project gun's probably good enough most of the time if it's got enough damage to kill them, given the stage in your game it's at. Then I ask myself, why on earth have I never had to make that decision before? Was I not familiar with these guns? And that's because the Synedrion came out with this thing. The Hephaestus, I don't know. Um, so, still 50 damage, but now you have 27 effective range and 22 ammo capacity because laser tech is awesome. Those nerds at Synedrian have developed some good stuff, and at 27 range, you can reach out and hit targets reasonably accurately at quite a long distance. And when you use rapid aim, pistol shots are free. Also, if you have the reduced Overwatch cost, then Overwatch with pistols is also free. So you might be doing a fair amount of medium range pistol shooting if you have a pistol that can do it. And this pistol can do it. 27 effective range, 50 damage is still enough. You can put 4 rounds downrange at short to medium range, reasonable accuracy, and hit moderately hard. If for whatever reason you don't want to take a sniper shot, 2 sniper shots on rapid aim, or you're moving or whatever, or you want to take 1 sniper shot and you see, the enemy's nostrils kind of quite bleed out, you can probably draw your handgun and land a center torso shot at reasonable distance on most targets with this gun. So the Hephaestus is probably my go-to for tier 1 handguns in the game. It's just a really solid gun, and you'll never need the backup magazine at 22 rounds, just 8.22. Phoenix Project's really apparently into heavy caliber short magazines, so, go them, I guess. But again, as with many of the weapons categories, I think Synedrian dominates the 1 AP handgun category. The only arguable competitor, which is a very different sort of handgun, is this thing. It's one of the first Anu guns we're seeing, Nurgle's Wrath, named after Taxiarch Nergal. So, this takes 2 action points to shoot. So you can put 2 rounds downrange from a laser pistol in the same time you get 1 from this. You can shoot 2 of those laser rounds at more than twice the effective range, because this thing is like shotguns, like machine guns, very much a sort of, wedge it into your opponent's limb so you can see nothing but the target in both circles and pull the trigger. 10 ammo capacity is relatively weak, but it's still a lightweight weapon. Can still be used in one hand, and the real draw here is that it does 100 damage. And the draw of it doing 100 damage is that, 1, armor is less significant, so if you're dealing with heavily armored enemies, the relative loss of damage is less. If you're shooting at an enemy with the laser pistol twice and they have 40 armor, you'll do 20 damage with the laser pistol, you'll do 60 with Nurgle's Wrath. It's also a high enough damage figure that if you're dealing with a target which can return fire, you're more likely, or there are more circumstances where you'll be able to disable the return firing limb with the Nurgle's Wrath shot, and thus take less return fire. Return fire can be murderous. I'd usually deal with it with sniper rifle shots, but, Berserkers might also be using this gun. Technicians might also be using this gun. It's worth considering. I'm not a huge fan. It doesn't fit with how I play the game. I use shotguns as my short-range murder machines, and there's a big difference between a shotgun and this hand cannon, given that the shotgun also costs 2 action points to fire, but it'll do potentially 400 damage against a lot of targets. So I discount the hand cannon, but you may see reasons to use it. I'm just not one of those people. Let's move on and deal with who have we got in other tier 1 weapons. So I count this, there's a few weapons that I'm going to count now as tier 1, even though they actually only come in specialized units, but we may as well talk about them. In all cases, there's no real competitor for them. It's just worth talking about their characteristics quickly, mostly because you'll sometimes have an opportunity to dual class or get a weapon specialization and thus move away from the starting weapon. The Synedrian crossbow does 60 damage. It has a 3-round magazine, it costs 1 AP to fire, and has a 34 effective range. It is the natural weapon of the infiltrator class. If you're playing on a higher difficulty, you will probably not have many of these. You can see I don't have a huge number, but that's the ones I did get. I stole from Synedrion later in the game. I didn't manufacture these, even though I had the tech for it. So the crossbow is actually a relatively balanced weapon against most targets when you come to think about it, mostly because that 1 AP cost for 60 damage. What you're basically getting here is a more accurate New Jericho handgun with a lower magazine capacity. When you think about that, it doesn't sound great as a primary weapon, but it's okay, being able to put 3 rounds down range and then reload is okay. There was a theory going around for a while that you had to use crossbows with stealth classes or they would lose concealment. My testing suggests that isn't the case, that you can go around firing off loud ballistic weapons and it won't break stealth. The crossbow is not your only weapon there. I still use crossbows, but most of my use of infiltrators until they're dual classed is not to kill things as a general rule. They're mostly there to scout, create decoys, deploy spider drones, things like that. So I would not normally deploy a crossbow on something I intend to be combat classed. The infiltrators I have, which are late game combat classed, are carrying shotguns. And in that respect, they can be really dangerous. It's possible to cheese the game if you're very lucky and get 100% stealth infiltrators. At that point, you're undetectable and you can go around shotgunning people in the face. I think it's a bug and it should be fixed. I don't think that's a feature, strictly speaking. The viral rifle is the weapon of the Anu priests. The viral rifle is a shit weapon. The viral rifle shoots 3 rounds that do only 20 damage. It does pierce 10, so you can get through. You can do damage to targets which only have 20 armor. Hooray! And it's inaccurate as crap. The whole point of this weapon is not to do damage. It's that if it does damage, you inflict virus, and virus can permanently panic enemies by giving them a turn tick willpower debuff. My problem with this is, one, the priest will usually want to be doing different things, i.e. your priest will usually be using its priest abilities or recovering its will, not shooting people with a shitty rifle. Secondly, if you want to lower people's willpower with a rifle or a weapon, what you're going to do is you're going to get assaults or heavies, which have the unique special ability that some guys spawn with. I think it's called Biochemist or something like that, that gives all their bullets viruses as well. You're going to give them shotguns, and you're going to go up to people and shoot them in their face with a shotgun and give them like virus 12 and watch them panic every turn. Or you're going to shred all the armor off a boss and then give it virus 30 and then laugh at it for the rest of the game. Or mind control it, whatever you want to do. The point is, virus rifles are very obviously there to serve a niche, and that niche just doesn't exist. If you could give other classes this weapon and maybe it had a higher burst value, maybe, but the job is just done better by other tools, and a lot of the time it's competing directly, not just with the priest using its abilities, but in the case of other classes that could potentially use this weapon, which they can't natively, competing with the idea of just shooting something in the face with a hell cannon or a shotgun, or a whole bunch of Demos laser fire and just killing it. So I don't rate the virus rifle. With that, is there anything that I have not covered in the tier 1 weapons list? I think most other things would count as tier 2. Yeah, probably. Oh no, sorry, I lie. There are technicians. Let's find a technician. Here we are. My technician is obviously dual classed and so carrying a sniper rifle, but you can also carry these things. Personal defense weapons. Personal defense weapons are little submachine gun things that only cost 1 action point to use, have short range, and fire a large, four shots of 30 damage each with a significant magazine. The only tier 1 PDW is the new Jericho gun. So this is the only option available to you at the start of the game. The question is always going to be, are you better off with a pistol or a PDW? My answer is, I like the PDW most of the time, but with a technician, even if they're carrying like a turret, there's still some weight there. Maybe you carry a magazine. Let's ditch that. I don't think you usually need extra ammo for the arms, so you could do that if you really wanted to have some versatility. But again, the technician's not going to be shooting a bunch of the time with either a PDW or a pistol loadout. My technicians have sniper rifles, so they can contribute at the start of the game after they've deployed their turrets, and then later on they can run around healing people and they're not going to be doing a whole bunch of shooting anyway. PDW is a nice backup weapon. The problem with the PDW is it's really good in the early game, actually. This is good value when enemies have 10 armor. This is like a baby assault rifle. You're getting Similar damage values to the assault rifle for a burst that's the same as the new Jericho assault rifle, but you're only paying 1 action point. Against an unarmored target at close range, this thing murders things more effectively than assault rifles, and it weighs less, and it's a nice balanced good gun. Problem is, once armor starts getting deployed, this weapon becomes obsolete relatively quickly, and even the 50 damage handguns can sometimes become a better deal. Also, it's hard to overestimate how inaccurate this thing is, but you have options. And if we talk about tier 2, you have the option to go up to 2 versions, either a more balanced general laser PDW from the Phoenix project, or you get an armor piercing version from New Jericho, which allows you to keep this basic PDW design relevant into the later game. Other classes can sometimes get the ability to have handgun and PDW specialization, and that specialization usually comes with plus 20 damage per shot. That brings the VDM Defender up to 50 damage per shot for a 4-round burst. At that point, the thing is competitive with shotguns against unarmored targets at moderate ranges. If you can land all 4 shots at 50 damage apiece, you're doing 200 damage. Now, that's half of what a shotgun can do, 400 against an unarmored target, the Anu shotgun. However, this only costs 1 AP to shoot. So it's genuinely competitive with shotguns with the ability. So if you see units with the ability to take handgun PDW specialization, you might, in some situations, it might be a good idea, even though you're giving up a will point or a speed point, to grab that and carry a PDW as a secondary weapon, because it'll mulch certain targets. Useless against others, but it will mulch them. And with some of the later game PDW options, these things can remain relevant. But that's no different to saying that, under certain conditions, new generation assault rifles can be relevant. They can, but it's worth noting that the ability for this thing, unlike the assault rifle ability, which gives 20% damage, which would only take this thing to 36, has a flat plus 20 damage bonus. I wonder if that's a miscommunication within the developers or not, because it also gives you things like 70 damage Hephaestus laser pistols, which actually give you the gunslinging vibe at that point, because you're firing off 4 rounds, or in the case of a sniper, up to 8 rounds a turn at 70 damage with quite good accuracy, particularly on the quick aim. So that's the tier 1 weapons options. Not talking about melee weapons, obviously, because they're a bit, they're niche. If people are interested, I'll add melee weapons to the tier 2 weapons video. But your basic trade-offs in the early game are, you have no choice on the specialized weapons. It's viral rifles for priests, the VDM defenders for technicians, and crossbows for infiltrators. And then you have a choice of your assault rifles, your light machine guns, your heavy cannons, and your sniper rifles. And of these, I would say Synedrian usually prepares, where there's a Synedrian option available, so assault rifles, pistols, and sniper rifles, provides you everything you want except for raw damage. New Jericho emphasizes damage at all costs, and the Phoenix Project weapons tend to be the inferior starting option with a better version. The shotgun is replaced by the Anu shotgun. The sniper rifle is replaced by either the Synedrian or the New Jericho sniper rifle. The pistol is replaced by either of its opponents. The independent ones exist there purely to loot. So in most cases, my early game recommendation, because enemies aren't super armored until you start slaughtering them and they start evolving, is to use Synedrian sniper rifles, Anu shotguns, Synedrian pistols. Although I understand people who use New Jericho sniper rifles, I understand that. Stick to the race-specific versions for these guys, and then when it comes to your heavies, I would stick with the Hell 2 cannon, which has no direct competitor at tier 1. I would just stick to that high damage weapon for heavies, but you can consider carrying the New Jericho Deceptor LMG, or I wouldn't be so desperate as to carry the Uragan instead. I'd stick to the Hell 2. You're likely to have them, but if you're really short on equipment and materials and that's all you have, and you have a heavy, you can construct a scenario, but I would stick to the Hell 2 cannon generally as having greater utility, but I wouldn't rule out the light machine gun. That's been a walkthrough of the tier 1 weapons offerings. The tier 2 weapons are obviously more spoilery, so I'll discuss them in a separate video, I think. But I think my next video is actually going to be Dominions 5 content. I've got a MA Relay guide that's almost ready to go. That'll go up ahead of the next game. But for now, this has been a little bit of a guide to Phoenix Project, its weapons in particular. I hope this has been helpful. Invite comments as always, and I'll see you guys next time.